I am here today in the bookshop and I am joined by Gaynor Kane, who is a poet from Belfast. We're good mates as well.
We are.
Yeah, so that's always nice. But I love Gaynor's work. Gaynor has had 2 collections out so far, 2 small short collections. So there's a micro collection called Circling the Sun, was out about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then a pamphlet that came out, I was at the launch of, with shortbread, called Memory Forest. And this is your first full collection, and I've just got to show off the cover because it's absolutely gorgeous.
Thank you.
It's called Venus in Pink Marble, and we've got the most lovely Venus down the sides. So did you get to have a say on the cover, or?
Yes, I did. I commissioned a local chap, Dave Goring from 2789 Graphic Design, to do the cover, and all I told him was the title, and about 10 minutes later he went, "How's this like?" And I was like, "Oh my goodness, I love it." So I think we started out with a different Venus because he had to check copyright, but she's copyright free and good to go. Yeah, I didn't pose for that.
That could be a little sideline. So first of all, you're really, really welcome here, and thank you for coming down.
Thanks for having me, Joe. It's a delight to be here. I love your shop. You've done amazing things with it. It's so gorgeous.
Thank you. I always get a bit sort of, that, no, I'm not good with that.
But you have to be proud of what you've achieved here. You know, it's just so beautiful and so welcoming and so safe in these days. You know, I feel totally comfortable being here today.
That's good. That's good, because we are in the middle of still lockdown, and that's why we're here on our own. Unfortunately, we'd love to have you with a room full of people, and that will be ahead for us.
Yes,
Yeah.
it will. To look forward to.
So you got these this morning.
Yes.
In the nick of time.
Just in the nick of time. Yes, they've been doing a tour of the mainland for the last 3 days, and finally good old Venus put on her bathing suit and swam across the Irish Sea. So
Lady with time. So how did it feel opening the box?
oh, it was so exciting. Yeah, it was just like Christmas. And I was really lucky. It was a lovely guy from FedEx came, and he lifted the many boxes into the hallway and all for me. So yeah.
There's nothing like it. There's nothing like
You know, because you see the PDF and it's hard to put it into 3 dimensions then, you know, and just to have the physical thing in your hand and stroke the cover and smell the pages.
I do all that too. And it never gets old. It doesn't matter that you've had, you know, the other 2 little collections out. It doesn't matter. It's still something special. So I suppose one of the things I was wondering about, your last pamphlet had such a strong theme in it. It was all about grief.
Yes.
And reflections on grief and stories about grief. Is there a theme in this one, or is it a bit more loose, or?
This book is divided into 3 sections. So the first section are poems around place and heritage, ancestry, and then the middle section moves on to me, I suppose, and so it's quite a lot of autobiographical poems and poems about my relationships and my experiences. And then the final section moves on to poems about works of art and news stories, so it's more focusing on culture and art.
And that's where the cover then maybe comes from, that sort of sense of the...
Yeah, it was funny when I was trying to pick a title for the collection. I struggle with titles a lot, and I chose a poem, Window Weather, that has the phrase Venus in Pink Marble. And it was only afterwards, when I was looking back and reflecting on things, I realised that there's quite a few references to stone and marble, and there's several references to Venus, you know, in terms of the goddess and the planet. So it then only became clear that it was the right title, and you know, it's funny how things work out.
It just fits. It's very you, I have to say, as well.
Very girly.
Well, I was going to ask you if you would maybe read one of the week poems for us.
Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah. I'll do that. I'll read one about Belfast in the early 1920s when the town was in lockdown. I suppose they had a curfew every night because of civil unrest at that stage and not a virus. And this is Dead Short on the System, Belfast, 1923. Every trolleybus and tram frozen, stopped dead on the first evening of a new year, dark, damp, and sticky like a newborn. Across the city, cars are static, blocking streets and junctions like snakes and ladders. Those tram-trapped fear the curfew more than the rain. Moments before the blackout, a rat wandered aimlessly into high voltage power station to lazily chew through copper cables. It was found the following day, fused to circuit, curled teeth still clamped around the wires, pink ears, black currant eyes, rigger straight legs, while outside trams trundled.
Very good. That's such imagery, the idea of the rat, and
Thank you.
yeah, that's my sort of poem as well. So it is, 'cause I do like the slightly, would we say gritty?
Yes.
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 You know,
Yeah.
which is often very reflective of Belfast as well.
Yeah.
And you're from East Belfast,
Yes.
and a lot of your poems take themes and imagery from Belfast.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they do. My dad served his apprenticeship in the shipyard,
So did mine.
and I've several ancestors that are shipyard workers as well. And you know, I grew up in a little terrace house in East Belfast of two working class parents, and I suppose my poems reflect those hard days, you know, when there wasn't much money about and my dad had to work really hard until he had to retire early because of rheumatoid arthritis, and that was a big knock to him, you know, as a working man. So there's a lot of poems in the book about East Belfast, about my parents and my ancestors. So, you know, the shipyard focuses quite a few times in it, and other parts of Belfast. And then I've Cardor ancestors as well, so they come to play in it. And yeah, so there's a lot of poems about places, and it's very much a Northern Ireland collection, you know.
Which is all the better because it gives that additional voice and additional resonance to work, I think, whenever you feel the place coming through it.
Mm-hmm.
And Carrador's interesting, obviously, because there's the connection with Carrick and Louis McNeice in Carrador.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I've ancestors buried in the same graveyard as Louis
Right.
McNeice. Yeah.
yeah, because that was something that we were hoping to do was a Louis McNeice day. So we'll have you along if we do it, because he is such a nice poet and so much of an influence, I know, on poets, you know, in Northern Ireland. I suppose you're also very involved. You know, we're talking about East Belfast. You're very involved with the East Side Arts Festival.
Yes.
And we've done the choir with the poems, which is always a great, you know, event. I know this year obviously it hasn't been able to go on, but you've done one
No.
online.
Yeah, some of the poets decided they would go ahead and record their pieces, so they've gone up on the internet. We're hoping maybe at some stage later this year or in the spring then the physical event will happen. And I kind of need to know what date that's going to be, because I still haven't written my poem for that. I need the deadline. But I have an idea what it's going to be. And yeah, my song then to write that, to inspire that poem was the Mr. Bean theme tune.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, so
Because the year I did it, you gave me a very bucolic song, very nice and sweet,
and you went Exploding Planet.
and I write
Yeah.
dystopia, and I was like, what am I going to do with this one? but that's the pleasure of those sort of events. They stretch you,
Yes.
you know.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of developing as a poet, do you think there are people in Northern Ireland who helped you develop? Is there a sort of mentoring network of poets? I mean, what way?
Yeah, oh absolutely. I've had such help. So grateful to so many people. When I first started to write, I went to a class at the Crescent with Maura Donaldson. I did several terms with Maura, and you know, I was only getting used to critique at that stage, but it was a great class to provide that for me. And then from 2016, I've been a member of Hollywood Writers Group, and they're great for offering critique and going through drafts and making sure that what I'm trying to say actually comes across on the page, because sometimes you're so close to it. You know what you mean, but you need to know that other people understand what you mean. With Memory Forest, I had great help from Mary Montague. She provided some mentoring for that collection, and assisted them with one of the launches as well, and gave such a beautiful introduction to that. I kept on listening to her and saying, surely that's somebody else's work she's talking about. You know, she did this very close reading of it and drew lots of parallels with other work, and I was like, oh my goodness. And then for Venus in Pink Marble, I had the pleasure of working with Maria McManus as a mentor for it. Had several sessions thanks to the Arts Council for that.
The Arts Council.
Yeah, the Arts Council. Yeah, so that was an amazing opportunity. And then there's so many, like yourself, Joe. You know, there's such a good group with Women Allowed NI as well. That's a support network, and we can ask questions and get help, and you know, ask the hive mind for suggestions.
It sometimes takes you down all sorts of paths, but yes.
Yes, yeah.
It's interesting that everybody you mentioned were women poets, because sometimes the women get overlooked a little bit in the poetry. I mean, even in here we realised whenever we did a sort of stock take of the poetry that we had all men practically and only one or two almost token women. And that's very much not the case in Northern Ireland. I mean,
no.
It's very vibrant women's writing scene.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, I know that. And I suppose that's the purpose of Women Allowed NI. I mean, if there was that balance, it wouldn't be needed anymore. But it's still very much the case that it's needed, and we have to help each other and support each other along the way, you know.
And I know there's a number of exciting names that are starting just to move towards their first collection. People like Anne McMaster up in the North Coast, and Karen Mooney, hopefully. So there's a lot more sort of exciting poets coming through, which is lovely to see.
Yeah.
You'll be the class of 2020, so you will. The 2020 squad. Trish Bennett's another who does tremendously good fun poetry.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you if you would finish up with another wee reading for us, if you don't mind. Yeah.
So again, this is another Supposing East Belfast poem. Well, it's about me and my childhood. The Wishbone. Sunday evening saw the chicken picked clean of all cream flesh, the wishbone set aside and carcass boiled for stock. Every morning, as sacred as Stonehenge, the rising sun perfectly aligned through the furcula's arch, propped against the pane. Drying it took days. You wish now that you'd known your ancestors made theirs with just a stroke. You had to wait for the bone to be brittle, to break. Siblings absent, you chose mother each Saturday, the weaker one, until father's hands distorted and you, in your 20s, were still wishing. Little Pinky, perfectly poised, wrapped around the centre, not the tip. That was a flawed strategy. You held tight, she pulled, snap. You always got to make the wish. Eyes clamped tight to send it into flight, and you can't remember what you hoped for, or if it ever came true.
Oh, that's fabulous. That's just very evocative of a certain type of childhood. I mean, I suspect these days not so much. There's that tradition of, you know, sort of drying and making the most of everything we have around it. So it's very evocative of a time. And your father moving on, as you know, with you were saying about the arthritis earlier and how that's captured.
Yeah.
That's really lovely.
Thank you.
I am so looking forward to reading this here. I absolutely loved Memory Forest, and I think I gave several away as gifts as well. It's actually a terrific pamphlet if anybody is dealing with grief and is looking, you know, so once or twice I've you know, after somebody's lost something, so I'm really looking forward to getting into this here.
Thank you, Jo.
It's been lovely having you down.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, and you've got a launch tonight, although that'll be over by the time this goes out, but you're on Facebook tonight launching live. Some of it's pre-recorded, but you're also
live.
going to be there.
We're hedging our bets.
Yeah. And I just hope it goes so well for you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.